So up next, we have a very exciting designer roundtable discussion, and I'll ask Zach and the designers to make their way up to the stage here. The designer roundtable is hosted and moderated by our own Zach Pauls, a recent addition and former employee at Decor Cabinets. Zach is director of special projects. Zach is an architect and with an extremely diverse range of professional experience in the design and construction of the built environment. Zach has worked on award-winning architecture of numerous scale and typologies, including cultural, educational, civic, governmental, and residential, with architecture offices located in Winnipeg, Los Angeles, and New York City. He's a registered architect in the state of California and has been an active instructor in several architecture schools over the past 15 years. Zach has called Los Angeles his home for the past decade and is an avid traveler and foodie. So if you find yourself in a new city and you need a 5-star restaurant recommendation, drop him a line and he'll happy to help you out. Please join me in welcoming Zach, Tahini, Ameilya, Lindsay, and LeAnn to the stage.
Good morning. Thank you, James. We have a great panel here today. I'm going to introduce the 4 designers that I have here to my left. We have LeAnn. LeAnn Weber has been a designer at Main Built Custom Homes in Minnesota Cabinets. She received a Bachelor of Arts degree in interior design from the University of Northern Iowa, and shortly after started a design career at a residential construction company. Both experiences cemented her love for creating personalized designs that tell a story of custom collaboration. Welcome. Sitting beside her is Tahini Sher. Tahini has a background in architecture, experience in house additions and renovations in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Her design process takes a holistic approach, integrating architectural principles into kitchens, bathrooms, and other interior spaces. For the past 3 years, she has focused on designing interiors for new custom homes. Next, we have Lindsay Schultz. Lindsay has been exclusively working in the kitchen and bath industry. She brings her previous background in marketing, accounting, and customer service to Lindsay Schultz Kitchens, a boutique kitchen and bath company based in Midland, Ontario. As principal designer, Lindsay leads all her projects with dedication and high levels of creativity. And sitting next to me here is Ameilya Hall. Ameilya studied interior design at Yorkville University for 4 years. Her entry into the industry began with a focus on healthcare applications and settings with heritage, which curated a unique perspective on spaces function, human integration, and human ergonomics, which ties to our earlier conversations today or our presentations. With experience in sales, design, and millwork, she likes working in the Okanagan Valley with Legacy Kitchen's boutique showroom. So we have been working together on a number of questions on a variety of topics that we're going to discuss today. I broke those down into 4 categories of communication, time, software, and design. And so I'll be sharing some of the questions, and the panelists will be responding to those, and we'll have a little bit of time for some responses or questions at the end. It's sort of a light initial warm-up question. I asked the panelists if they have any favorite design idea or moment so far from 2024, and I don't know if any of you, here's microphones in front of you. Is there something that you'd like to start with there? While you're thinking about it, I can jump on. Earlier this year, I traveled to Seoul, Korea with my family, and we were walking down one of the main boulevards, and I peeked and saw something in this dark entryway, and I walked in, and it was a coffee shop that had a 10-foot tall volcano with steam billowing out the top of it as its main central thing, and as a design curiosity and just the effort and the money spent on something that's not necessarily functional, but very engaging. There was people taking all kinds of selfies in front of it. It was a pretty exciting thing. Yeah.
So this year we worked on a project where the clients picked a house based on the previous work that we did. She liked the architectural plans, she liked the style of that house, and the house was beautiful. But that house was done in 3 years ago. So now we have a client who came with a different taste, different ideas, and we worked with her. And we also introduced some new trends that we felt are, the time for them to be done. We introduced, softer color palette on the exterior, more natural finishes on the inside, more natural materials and textures. And then after the project was done, we went to that house, and it's a completely different house. It was more like a tale of two houses. This is not the first time that we've done this, but I feel like every time we do it, it's interesting and fun.
Thank you. The first category of questions that we're going to look at are communication. LeAnn can start this one off. What strategies do you use to gather detailed information and requirements from clients?
I think we all know that it's great when a client does come in with inspirations and know what they want, but that is not always the case typically with a lot of our clients. Sometimes they need a little more help figuring out what it is that they are looking for and what direction they want to go. So a couple tactics that we typically would use is a client comes in and maybe we at least have a few palettes laid out for them to see, are we going with a warmer palette? Are we going with a cooler palette? And, even just going from one of those, then, maybe we do have a few other finishes off to the side that, like, let's say we're going with the warm palette, but we want a little lighter flooring, so we can maybe switch that out. And even just right there, we at least have an idea of kind of the direction that the house is going. And then a lot of times we might do just even a simple PowerPoint presentation with some either or and just some different pictures of their different fireplaces that we're looking at, or are we going with a decorative hood surround or decorative metal hood surround or a wood hood. And so at least putting something in front of them to at least give them some sort of direction. And then we always kind of have an in-depth discussion about appliances before we start anything, because the appliances drive so much of how that kitchen is going to lay out, and it's hard to lay any of that out without having firm idea of what those are going to be. One thing I do tend to try and avoid is just sending the client a long questionnaire of questions, because I think that they find it to be a little overwhelming, and I think they benefit more from a little more guidance from a professional.
Great, thank you. So from the beginning of the project to working throughout the project, Ameilya, what are some strategies or best practices for commuting throughout the project?
Personally, I have a notebook that I carry everywhere. So I document everything, no matter how small or little it might be, and I can always refer back to it. So having that resource is really important, making sure you don't miss anything and being able to actively listen, record, and then reiterate those questions or things that clients are saying back to them so that they feel heard and valued, and they feel like they understand, they can trust your design process. Yeah, that's most important for me. And then setting clear expectations right up front, making sure that you're transparent about any challenges that might come up in the project, and making sure that they're well aware of things ahead of time, and not catching them off guard with surprises, because it's always hard for them to bounce back from that and have that full trust in you.
Absolutely. I think the notebook's a great idea. In the architecture projects that I have worked on too, there's documentation of decisions made throughout the project, right? It's absolutely critical, because it's amazing how we or clients might forget, right? And you got to be right. We did decide this. We didn't miss it. It's okay, right? So, Lindsay, what methods or tips could you share about managing client expectations, specifically timelines and budgets?
I think that's kind of a very loaded question always for clients, is around timelines and budgets being a very sensitive subject. But we always kind of do start with, those are two big questions we always start with. If timelines, if we throw it out to them, what are their expectations around that? If it seems unrealistic based on the scope of the project, we quickly, try to gain their trust, use our professionalism, past experiences to coax them or guide them into what a realistic expectation might be and sense their comfortability with that. And immediately it gains their trust with us, because we are speaking from past projects, and it kind of sets the tone for, the rest of the project, and enjoying it and making sure that they have time to make great decisions. It's a big investment. So setting that timeline and, speaking to, then you'll enjoy it more, is important for us. Budgets is always a crazy discussion. What's your budget? I mean, it's just such a hard question, and it comes across as hard. So, we use words like, what are you expecting to spend on a project like this? And even if they say, I don't know, which is very common, have you ever done this before? No. Well, then we'll speak to past projects again and say, listen, a project of this size, which is similar to yours, they spent X. How do you feel about that? So it's an immediate reaction that you can gauge just even in standing in front of them, what their reaction is around that budget number, to sense that, oh, they are being realistic or they aren't being realistic. And we're very transparent too, where if it's not realistic, we're like, we don't really think you're going to get what you're looking for in that budget. If you're willing to explore other options and expand the budget, then we can do so much more. So again, it's just being upfront so that nobody wastes time and everybody has a really enjoyable experience throughout.
Great. Yeah. On expectations, one thing that I like to teach the young designers that I work with as they're coming out of school and starting to work with the team or even clients is under promise and over deliver, right? So don't say it's ready tomorrow, right? Maybe say it's ready in a few days, but then if you then deliver it tomorrow and it looks much better than the opposite way, right? When you say, oh, I'll get it to you tomorrow and you send it next week, right? So under promise, over deliver. LeAnn, another question for you. What have been some successful client follow-ups at the conclusion of a project? What has been a response and outcome of some of those follow-ups?
When we finish up a new home, we are very good about usually photographing a lot of those projects. And so photo shoot days are very special days. We spend a lot of time kind of thinking about how we want that staged and everything. And we're always so thankful to the clients for letting us come back to be able to photograph. And so when we come in and if we know the clients are going to be hanging out with us for the day, maybe we bring in some bagels or breakfast, coffee, some fresh flowers, and just really so they know that we're glad that they're there and glad that we get to showcase their project. One other thing we like to do is kind of do some customized gifts for them as well. We've spent the last year, sometimes 2 years with them, so we've really gotten to know them over the project. And so, like one client, I know they were really into craft cocktails, so we got them a nice little craft cocktail bar kit and some custom etched glasses. And then one other thing that we've started doing that I love is we have a local artist who will do some hand sketches of the houses that we've just worked on, and we put it in a nice custom frame. And these houses are so much of their personality as well, that they've helped create this house as well. And so the response has always been fantastic when we give them this custom piece of artwork. So
anybody else on the panel that has a good follow-up story or?
This isn't something that I've done, but Legacy in Calgary has done in the past, and we're going to be implementing in Kelowna, is we're going to be throwing like a dinner party for those really exclusive clients or people who invest a lot of money and time in us. So we're going to be bringing a chef who's going to do a custom dinner for them and their family, just to thank them and to just really bridge the gap between what we do in the background to what we do in the front lines with our clients and with their families.
That sounds great, yeah. And it's a kitchen. It should be used, right? Let's eat some food for sure. Thank you. Now switching over to a couple of questions about time. Lindsay, what would be a time-saving tip for the initial design phase that you've utilized in the past?
Well, I take this question as the design phase when you're actually grinding and kind of coming up with that first concept for a client. So the time-saving tip while you're working on that, from my perspective, would be to exhaust your consultation and really make sure you're not rushing through it. Spend a ton of time with the client. If you're doing a renovation, stand in their space, talk through things that currently don't work in their space. It's just having a really great line of questions that are critical to being most efficient when you're designing that first concept. In times where I'm unable to be in front of a client in person, or we're just doing a quick phone call and I just don't have all that information, I just find myself sometimes staring at a screen. It's like, where do you start? So it's just, again, exhausting that consultation. Make sure you're prepared. Have that those key list of questions that you want to work through, and make sure you nail all of them so that you're most efficient for them and you do your best work for them.
I'll ask this question to LeAnn first, but maybe the other panel wants to speak to it too. How do you manage revisions and client feedback?
I always want my clients to make sure that they're feeling heard. So if it is a change that they're asking for that I think may negatively impact the space, whether it's functionally or aesthetically, I always just go through my reasoning of why I did what I did and past experiences of why this would maybe work better. If it's something that they're still adamant on, I always try to show them what it is that they asked for. But then I always make sure that I show them this is maybe what I would do if this were my house. And it's fairly successful. It doesn't always work. We can't win every battle. But they're always at least appreciative that they were shown this option and that they were heard.
Yeah, I think that's critical. It was a tough lesson, but one in architecture that I've learned too is working with people. We're supposed to be the professionals or the design experts, right? And we have a strong idea. We've seen a lot, right? But you always need to show them what they asked for, right? And you can compare it to something that this is an alternate to that, but not hearing them, like you said earlier, is something that, we just can't miss, right? Couple of questions about software. Ameilya, what tools or software do you use to enhance your workflow?
So a couple of you already know what I do. I've kind of shared my secret with you. Everyone uses 2020, which can always be a pain in the butt. It always takes forever to do any rendering, which is a really great tool for selling and helping clients visualize, because a lot of them can't think in 3D, and it's a nice tool to have. But I specifically use a program called Magnific. It's an AI-based tool where you can punch in your photograph or your rendering, and then it basically puts a filter on it. And there are all sorts of filters that you can use to make it look more realistic or to highlight certain areas, change the finishes, and it's much quicker. It's a great tool, and it looks like a photograph when you're done. So that's been a really successful thing for me. I also use ChatGPT actually just to brainstorm ideas if I'm stuck in a rut or I need some creative guidance. It's a great tool to use to bounce ideas around. So that's something that I personally lean on.
Well, and to what you're saying, I think, clients, people who are not trained in the drawings that we use or even, 3D views, it's really hard for them to envision it, right? I worked on a clothing store one time, and at the end, everything was set up and the clients just started to weep, and we're like, what's going on? And like, well, now we see what it looks like. We're so happy, right? And it's like, how can, we showed you drawings, we showed you renderings, right? And until it was done, it was full trust in us that we're going to do the right job, right? So being able to communicate those design ideas can be tough. Tahini, question again on software. What types of software apps do you use and find indispensable in your design work?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm really interested in what you just said.
Yeah.
And just knowing, the use of AI and ChatGPT, and I think we need to talk after this and just get to know more about the things that you do. I actually use another 3D software tool. It's called Chief Architect. I think it's great. And I've been using it for a long time. And all this time, I honestly never took this tool for granted. Obviously, we talked about the client side and how much they can benefit from a 3D tool where they get to see the space, they get to see everything, working together and the harmony and look at design as a whole. But it's also been a great tool for me. It just made me a better designer. It gave me the tool to look at the space and to think what actually works. and made my work easier because now I don't have to show the clients a lot of options. I know what fits, I know what works, and I keep in the back of my head other ideas and options. And during the design meeting, because now design meetings are interactive with the client, the husband and the wife equally being able to participate in these design meetings and give their input and show them that what if we made this small change, what the impact is going to be, what if we go back, and that is very valuable, I feel, and just makes our work easier. There are a lot of software. Obviously now there's more advancements in other areas, but there is SketchUp, and I know that a lot of people do some nice work with it. A lot of architects do Revit, which is like a process that other trades and professionals can also add to. I would say pick a tool that is easy to learn, easy to use, and something that has good rendering and visualization features.
Great, thank you. Maybe a show of hands, is anyone using AI in their workflows these days? Couple. It's going to be more and more. Get on it now. Don't be scared of it, I think, right? So now transitioning to our final topic for our panel of design. Lindsay, a question to start with you, and if others want to jump on this question after, that would be great too. What are some common space utilization mistakes that you think people should avoid?
Oh my God, I was nervous about this question. I feel like all eyes are on me, but I feel like we're all professionals and that's all we do is analyze space. But kind of something I see where, I feel like experience hasn't kicked in yet is, under like open shelves everywhere or too many open shelves. I mean, to me, I have like key things that I say over and over to clients, and too many open shelves where things aren't moving often back onto those shelves every day is just an underutilization of space. And unless you have a gigantic kitchen, I really struggle with open shelves. Because again, stuff should be moving, dust shouldn't be collecting. It should be there for ease of use, not for a hindrance to the kitchen. Obviously not enough drawers, lots of drawers in base cabinets. I mean, it's been brought up before. It's, certainly a trend something that we always do. We always spend the budget on drawers. One thing that, of course, is key is proper paths of travel, which, again, we're all trained to do this, is ensuring that, asking the question, how many cooks are in the kitchen at the same time? If a sink and range are back to back, sink being in an aisle and a range being directly behind, ensuring that those paths of travels when two people are really busy working in the kitchen is maybe extended a little bit wider so that, they're not cursing your name as they're cooking their dinner. You want to make sure that they're comfortable. Everyone having access to sinks. It's kind of something that is a big deal for me. Like, I always use my pen on a floor plan for clients, and I'm like, okay, imagine you're at the sink and now you need to go to the fridge, and then you're going back to the stove, or you're going to the island to chop, and they immediately start seeing things, crossing. And, that sink access, the sinks are busy, somebody needs to dump out a cup, fill up, a coffee maker, ensuring that there's maybe a second sink to avoid traffic jams in the kitchen is a big one for me. And lastly, quickly, everybody might boo at me, but those butler pantries that everybody's walking in behind the kitchens is, unless really thought out clearly, to me, is a cook's nightmare. If it's truly a butler's pantry where some small appliances are, or food is stored, to go in and out of an adjacent room to grab key items for cooking a meal is what I think is a poor use of space. So to ensure that you do have that everyday pantry out in the kitchen where you have access to food and some small appliances is key. So I think those butler's pantries, those serveries are very, very popular, and a lot of homes are being designed with them, but to plan them is a whole different animal to ensure that you're utilizing that space correctly.
I think, sink is super key. Me and my siblings, we love to cook and we'll vacation together, and some of the Airbnbs we stay at, still the traditional garbage underneath the sink, and everybody's fighting for that space at the same time, right? It's like the worst, right? That's one of my pet peeves for sure. Anyone else?
I actually wanted to kind of jump on that butler's pantry idea, because I'm working through a project right now, and I think you're absolutely right. It requires so much time and proper planning and really understanding what the client needs and wants to do in that space, because I personally like to think critically about what's going to go in each cabinet, or what appliances, what you're going to do in there, how you're going to access things, and what the actual tasks are going to be. And it's a constant struggle because your kitchen is so big and you have so much cabinetry, and then all of a sudden you're adding another room for a specific task, but that space is also quite large. So what do you put in there? So it can pose a very difficult design situation.
Question for you here, Tahini. Is a consistent design style important to your company or to an individual brand?
Yeah, I think it is. It's actually building your brand. It sets you apart from the competition. It gives you a unique niche in the market. And so having a clear design style can be difficult, tricky at the beginning, but I think after a while, after you've designed many homes, you did many designs, you worked with a lot of clients, you tested the market, you get to a point where you know what your style is and you know what you want to do. And that's the work that you promote on your website, on your Instagram, and people who see your work, see that style and they like it, they come to you. And I think that 80% of our clients are clients who have seen our work, they like our style, and they want to come and work with us. You do have like that 10 to 15% of people who like your style, appreciate you as a designer and understand your value, but they want to do something slightly different. They want to bring their taste into the table. They want to use things that they like to use. And I think that's great. You work with them, you understand their taste, you integrate their needs within your process, and you come with something that is slightly different. And then you have that 5%, that one client who comes to you and he wants to do something that you've never done before, something completely different. And you think that it's an interesting thing to do. You jump in and you start learning new things, even sometimes, outside your comfort zone, redefining some design principles in terms of symmetry or balance or harmony. And then you produce a project that is completely different. And I'm bringing the last two examples to say that, yes, you do have to have a consistent design style, but that doesn't mean that there is no room for growth and evolution. And I think we can all relate to that if you think about what you used to do 5 years ago and what you're doing now. It's really something that has evolved. And that's the thing that I want to say. Have your consistent design style, but keep your brand refreshed and updated so you can also stay relevant in the market.
One question that I want to tie back to the first presenters today, which I think was really great about the aging in place and ergonomics, open to all of you, hopefully multiple of you. Do you consider or utilize aging in place ideas or principles or ergonomic design in the work that you're doing? If so, how often is it a design consideration in the work that you're doing?
That's a challenging question because everybody's different. Ergonomics is very specific to each individual. So me personally, I'm a short person, so I always struggle reaching things and accessing appliances, anything like that. So that's always at the top of my mind is how they're going to access in the future, what their heights are, best placements, not specifically countertops, but more appliances and access to upper cabinets and those kind of things. So heights of things are really important to me, as they should be to everybody, and specifically aging in place. Drawers are huge. Appliances specifically are a huge consideration for myself. Lots of drawer dishwashers, drawer microwaves. So that's how I kind of implement ergonomics and aging in place.
Yeah, I would say it's very similar with us too. I mean, when you meet a client, you immediately sense, their stature, their age. It's something, I think, as a good designer, it's something that comes naturally when you're designing the new space. A lot of clients that have experienced challenges in their previous spaces will bring it up immediately to you. I'm short, I need this, I know what I need, and it's then just starts a conversation around that. So just, access to, again, utilizing, base cabinet storage, I think that pulls out, and multiple drawers is just such a huge thing as appliance locations and stuff. So, but it's a natural part of what we all are doing every day is accessibility.
So I don't think that I have enough experience to do the kind of work. I did some work related to ADA, and that is also a very important subject. And my first inclination would be, if I got the job like that, is really to contact an expert and just get to know all the ins and outs of that design, because it is a different ball game. And the question is always going to relate to the industry, and is there enough, material, products that can accommodate those kind of needs? And then that might affect the budget, because everything is going to be custom at that point. So I would bring in more experts who can help this morning's presentation, was really beneficial. It's just an eye opener, and I think we should reach out to these research and just learn more about those.
Yeah, in architecture, we need to build or design our projects with ADA in mind. And in California, additionally, it's very restrictive. And the thing that's unfortunate is, I think a lot of times all of those accessibility features and requirements are done very begrudgingly, right? It's, I have to do this thing, and it's not done with an understanding for the mobility and access issues that people might have, or changing that they might have, right? So I think, I wish my industry did it a lot better to have those conversations as design opportunities rather than design restrictions, right? One last question, then we'll open it up if there are any questions. Are there any design trends or design solutions you feel are going to be popular or critical in 2025?
So I think immigration is going to play a big role in the future. Maybe not specifically 2025, but just the amount of people coming from other areas. We talked about it when we were cooking, and how different cultures cook and how they use their ingredients, but how that's going to impact design, the styles of spaces, I think that's going to play a big role. But I also see technology becoming a huge integration in the kitchen.
I think with going through COVID and us all being locked up and attached to, each other through social media and other avenues, we were all exposed to some really powerful trends through the last 4 years that everybody has done, and it is almost like swear words. In our showroom in particular, it's when a client comes in and asks for a certain style, it's, again, hard to swallow, but I think for 2025, we've kind of hit a reset button, and I'm going to predict, a real trend towards our individuality again, and designing for our loves and not for what's trending necessarily. So really looking inwards and designing more timelessly and to our own taste, not following a trend.
I think we're going to still continue to see a lot of that organic design, and just bringing a lot of nature inside, as well as, bringing a lot of texture as well. I still have a lot of clients doing the natural stone countertops, at least in their kitchen. And because, it's that natural element. And when it is natural as well, I don't think they're afraid to go bold. And I love a good bold countertop.
Yeah, I like this style too. I really love it. I think it is emerging now, the more organic, modern cottage type of design. It's closer to people, to people and how they live. It's warmer palettes and more natural materials in the design. And I also want to say that I'm really liking the polished nickel finish coming, being now prominent. And I think for people who don't like the brushed nickel, I think the polished nickel is now becoming a classic, and I really like that trend.
Thank you. Any questions, James, that came from the audience?
Thank you, designers. There was a few that came in here. I guess for all of you, at what point do you ask for a deposit or retainer before starting the design?
We, again, just from experience, we set expectations with our clients right away. We've been experimenting actually with asking it for it right at the beginning, and it's been successful actually. So we're still entertaining that idea. The more experience and reputation, that you have, people respect that. It does show a level of respect. However, if we decide not to take that approach, our most common approach is we set the expectation. We're going to meet, we're consult, we're invest in you. We're going to do the first take. We're going to show you what our capabilities are, develop a relationship with you, and we're happy to do one revision. And after that, our kind of line is, It's usually at that stage that other clients have assessed if they're comfortable with us, what our capabilities are, if we have a mutual trust, and it's at that point that we ask for a retainer, and it's quite successful that way. So it shows our investment in the client, although I still feel like our industry is the only industry that doesn't ask for a retainer up front most commonly, but it gives us a chance to show our talents and develop a level of a relationship with the client. 'Cause it's like a marriage. We say you're married to these clients, so it's mutual. You want to make sure that everybody's happy to proceed.
Anyone else?
I'll add to that because I don't like to work for free, and I know that nobody here does. And drawings can be so time consuming, and you know that they're going to shop them. You know they will. So for me personally, if I get a designer that's already designed the space, I will do a quick drawing. I'll use a quick rendering to kind of sell the job. But I won't actually physically draw it until I have the retainer. So for me, I lean on a lot of past projects. I share my drawing packages, I share my renderings, and then just intimately meeting with them and understanding their needs so that they can trust me. I think earning their trust is really important, and we're all professionals, as you said. We should be asking for that, and we shouldn't be ashamed or be uncomfortable asking for that, because we provide a service that's really important to clients, and it's not free, and it's very time consuming. So
I should just add, we don't give our drawings away. It's like our investment, and that's how we proceed. It's like, this is our investment, and at the retainer, that's when you get it. So we do hold those back for sure. That does have monetary value, absolutely.
Okay. In regards to software use, I still do hand drawings and I know the limitations, but it's how I think and develop my designs. I feel like I could advance my designs by integrating more software to my process, but I'm intimidated. Is there still a place for hand drawings? What are your perspectives on this, and what software could be a good complement?
Yeah, so I do think that hand drawings still have a value, and it's that personal level of delivery to the clients. And that's fine. I mean, my only problem with it, if you're asking, is it too late? No. And please start immediately working with 3D software, because it will change the way you approach projects. And that is very important. Think about it. We build in 3D, so we need to think and start designing in 3D. That's my only answer. But hand drawings are perfect. We love them. They show a lot of talent, and it's the person himself doing that. But we need to move on. They can be, a souvenir at the end of the project when you give away a sketch and not actual technical drawings. That would be nice.
My additional suggestion there is to try out some trials of a few different softwares that you've heard or in your peer group. Each of them have different procedures on how you create your geometries, your shapes, your designs, and some might lend a little bit to the way that you think. I've worked with lots of softwares and lots of designers over the years, and each of them have their own preference as their default one because of the operations, the way that you create the shape. So if you're getting started, I would find some free trials and just try it out. There's endless amounts of tutorials on YouTube. Might just take some nice winter month weekends for yourself, but I think it's very valuable to do that. Get on it right away. But to the hand part, I use hand all the time. Sometimes hand is actually on the iPad, but hand sketching to think through that. I think a lot of us really like that brain to hand thinking through stuff, right? So I have my iPad and it's just full of all kinds of sketches for everything. That's how I do my thinking.
I'm just going to add to that. So I think hand sketches will always have a place. It's part of the creative process. It's so much faster than using computers to do things. So I think that it will always be important, and it'll be a good way to deliver ideas and work through problems. You would asked a question about what kind of software would complement that. And I don't think that you should be intimidated by it, because we're there, it's happening, it's going to continue to happen. So I think that it would be only detrimental to not embrace it. But a complementary program would be ChatGPT. So if you have ever used it, it's very easy. You can input a 2D drawing to it and ask it to extrapolate it into a 3D, and it can very easily project an idea of what you've already sketched out. So I think that it's something you could very easily integrate into your process.
You've really sparked some interest in your AI comments. So the question was, what was the name again of the AI tool you were using?
It's called Magnific. Magnific AI.
Magnific. Okay, thank you. For the group, when it comes time to install a project, how much detail do you go into with the installers before starting? Have you learned any key points to review or talk about with your installers that have been especially helpful?
I do some pretty extensive install packets with a lot of detail in them, and I know that there are always going to be certain areas that I know that I want to go over with the installer. So when I know that they are getting ready to install, I do make a special point for certain areas that we're going to go over it, and then I maybe send them the packet kind of ahead of time too, so that they can look it over, and if they do have any questions as well about certain things, they're free to ask me. But yeah, we always do have kind of a site meeting to go over all of that and kind of walk room to room before they get started.
Good, thank you. How much does sustainability come into your practice? Do you consider the impact your products have on the environment? Do you use recycled or recycled content?
So we specifically sell Decor. So as much environmental stewardship and considerations that you guys take, we also take. But specifically in Kelowna, we tear out a lot of kitchens. It would make you sick to think and see the stuff that we take out, because tons of people are buying places, brand new condos. They've got, terrible kitchens in them, but they're brand new. So we actually partner with Habitat for Humanity to take those kitchens away and repurpose them or resell them. So that's really important to us, and giving back to the community goes hand in hand with that. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
And another question, how often do you go back to designs years after they have been installed to see how well they are working for your clients? If yes, what have you learned from doing this?
I'm always looking back at past projects to reflect and learn a lesson, or just grow in general. It's just important to do. It's great to look back and actually demonstrate a concept to a client as well that maybe you've tried before. But I've looked back 20 years at projects, and it's you kind of gasp at what you used to do and how far you've come. But always looking back from like a growth perspective. I'm not sure if I answered that question correctly, but.
And maybe this is a good closing question for all of you. What would you tell your younger self about being a designer that you know now that you didn't know then?
I would tell myself, get involved in construction as well, because you learn a lot. Site visits, pre-framing, after framing, every step of the way, every little detail. When you go and see it on site, you will learn a lot, much, much more than what you learn in college and what you learn while you're just doing, hand drawings or CAD drawings.
Looking back, it's, just speaking from how I ended up here, design is everything you don't think it is. It's science, it's math, it's psychology, it's therapy, it's everything. So looking back, I would have told myself that, and just prepared myself, because the things that you learn over the years is insurmountable, but it's also really fulfilling.
And as I say, don't be afraid to try something new that you haven't done before. I take gambles all the time. Usually they work out, but I mean, a lot of times, trying something new, you learn a lot along the way, and you're not afraid to try it the more you do it.
For me, I would just say that don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that inspire you, and to welcome change and growth. Don't be afraid of it.
I would say travel. You gotta see stuff, see how other people do things great, see how other people do things different, see how other people do things poorly. You gotta travel and see stuff. I think that's a really important thing to do as a young designer.
Well, thank you, designers, Zach, for your insights.